Let's talk about Season 1 of Alice in Borderland. This action-packed survival series was a big success for Netflix back in 2020, so much so that a Season 2 of the Japanese smash hit was commissioned and is going to be dropping very soon. But before then, I wanted to go back and share my own personal thoughts and feelings on the first season, so there will be major spoilers ahead. The title of the show is an obvious play on Alice in Wonderland, which does have some slight thematic links to the show via the inclusions of cards and a character named Hatter. Other than that, Alice in Borderland takes us to a world not of real or fantasy, but of dead or alive. The setting is an abandoned parallel version of Tokyo. Many people from the real Tokyo have been transported there to participate in a series of deadly games for the amusement of the game masters. After their first complete a game, players receive a visa, and games must be played and completed to extend the expiry date on them. If your visa runs out, you get a precision laser through the noggin. Spicy. Try to leave the game area, you get a precision laser through the noggin. Spicy. The overall concept here was right up my alley, being a fan of trap-based or survival-based scenario films like Cube, Saw, and Would You Rather. But Alice in Borderland puts a really cool spin on it through the show's protagonist, Arisu, geometry buff, and is extremely sound in figuring out logic and purpose. It makes for a really compelling watch, as at multiple times a lot of characters become dependent on Arisu to figure out the solutions to certain games. But he's not like Sherlock Holmes levels. His mental power can only get him so far, as often certain blockades are put in place when he thinks he's on the way to figuring out the puzzle, only to throw him off guard and force him to rethink from a different angle under time-sensitive pressure. I was highly invested in Arisu because despite his superb intellect, it only got him so far in being able to suss the games flawlessly. That first trap with the dead or alive doors was so well done in my opinion. The characters must pick one of two doors, one leading to safety, one leading to death, all while the clock ticks down and gets progressively shorter with each room. The way Arisu figures it out using his geometry knowledge and memory of analysing the size of the building was incredibly interesting and really whet my appetite for where the series would go ahead. However, a further cool twist is that not every game follows that kind of logic. They all have a varying degree of how they are approached, and I really love this aspect. Games have a certain card allocated to them of different values. In Season 1, it's the numeric cards, whereas Season 2 is going to delve into the face cards. But people like Hatter, who we meet as part of the Beach Society, believe that collecting one of every card will be able to transport one person back to the real world. But the different suits provide different styles of game, such as Hearts games being more emotional and based on feelings. That was a fun way to keep each trap interesting and gave me vibes of the TV show The Crystal Maze, where players could select from different themes of challenge, including mental, physical, mystery, and skill. It breaks up the games and allows for more memorable games to be created. I was also a big fan of how not all players of the games are given the same rules. For example, in the tower block game Tag, some players are tasked with locating and deactivating explosive barrels within a time limit. They're pursued by two machine gun killers wearing horse masks for a sick aesthetic. However, the horseheads have their own game to play by killing off the other players within the time limit. It means that even within the same game, you can be tasked with approaching it from a different angle, each direction potentially leading to death. And this means at some points you might have to go against your friends. Really well handled in this case. If you're curious as to my favourite and least favourite games, I'd say for least favourite, probably the light bulb challenge, or that one where they're just running constantly. But for my favourite, for the spectacle of it and by luring you into the gaming world, the door trap was still my favourite. Great start of the series. Though I did appreciate the level of variety throughout the series, and how most of the episodes were half character development and half new game, with the final game of the series, The Witch Hunt, carrying out across the final 3 episodes. It was a solid way to break up the show so that the characters were given a chance to become meaningful, rather than just being random people we didn't really connect with or care about what happened to them. Speaking of, by the way, the handling of Shota and Karube was a shock I simply didn't anticipate, and led to the best episode of the series for me. In a game game where 3 people are sheep and 1 player is a wolf, with the wolf surviving and the sheep being killed, you wondered if there could be any way out of this at all. We followed these characters from the first episode, and you naturally expect to follow the trajectory of their stories across the entire show, especially with Shota now being set up with a girlfriend character. Yet here, only 3 episodes in, we lose these 3 main characters, 2 of which are our protagonist's best friends, in a horrifically graphic moment of bloodshed. This was not only a gut punch character-wise, totally altering the direction of the show from here on out, but it also demonstrated clearly that these games do not mess around. They are brutal, relentless, unforgiving, and they don't babysit and take precious care of main characters. Anyone can be killed in any game, and this episode proves it. From this moment on, you genuinely don't know where the series can lead, what the games will entail, and even if the show's creators will pick off Arisu or not. That's a brilliant feeling to have as a viewer due to a lack of predictability. I mean, don't get me wrong, the show doesn't have an abundance of originality. It's just a reskinned and repackaged version of other trap game type films and shows, but done in a way where you can't put money on beloved characters surviving. For however many future seasons we receive of Alice in Borderland, it's safe to say anything can happen. Was there anything I didn't like about the show? Well, to be honest, my interest did begin to slightly waver in the second half. I preferred the pacing and unfolding of the first couple episodes, with the mystery of what the hell is going on still looming. Once we reached the beach setting, it became a little more uninteresting for me. It's a location where people go to, can live freely, participate in games to receive cards, and then those cards are kept as property by the rulers, trying to save them up for a salvation play. And even though I did like the witch hunt game, there was just something about the back and forth society building of this beach culture that I didn't engage with all that much. Not a huge complaint, as there were still elements of those final episodes that I enjoyed, but considerably weaker than how the show started for me. Overall, season 1 of Alice in Borderland was a solid and intriguing start to a show which definitely has a couple more seasons left in its pocket to go, including season 2, which I'll be covering very soon on the channel. If you want to check that honest review out, why not consider subscribing and slapping the bell so you can be made aware of exactly when it drops. In fact, that's your challenge. Do that and I'll stick another month on your visa. Until you do that though, and I'm watching by the way, I've been the Ghoul Master, and I shall see you next time for another honest review. Cheers out.